Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you all for joining me today for this. It's as you know, it's a topic that's creating a lot of discussion, and I think I can clear some of it up. At least you tell me after we're done. You ask your questions, and let's see what you think. Okay. Some of you may know that I made a short video that I put online just a few days ago, which I had intended to be a private video that I would share with a couple of my friends, and I wanted to get their opinion, but it got, some reason or other, it went public, and there was about 350 views, and a number of replies came back that were, let's say, I can't say unanticipated, but to give you an example here, one person commented, so you don't need permission from Prabhupada to initiate an ISKCON? Nice logic. And Prabhupada had an asterisk. I guess this person maybe thinks that the GBC body is Prabhupada. That's how they teach the younger devotees. Another comment was, let's see, feels like quite a destructive mood. Sorry, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And then, who is this devotee? Looks like a sannyasi. If he's telling you to rebel against the GBC, he is not ISKCON. Beware. So, a lot of confusion. And I realize, of course, that I'm not very well known. I'm not, ISKCON now has become very large. There's millions of participants, millions of followers of Srila Prabhupada. And very, very few of them know me. And so when I say things like that in the video that gets so many views, naturally there's a lot of misunderstanding. So I thought, okay, let me do this. Let me make the same, make another video to give the same points, but do it in a way where I can present some background that will help devotees to understand what I'm saying. So that's this video. So thanks for coming. And turn to my notes. The female diksha guru is a big question. It has a lot of parts, and we're going to discuss a lot of those parts. But I want to begin with first giving an introduction to myself for those who don't know me. Dineshwar Das Goswami. I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1974 in Gainesville, Florida. Second initiation in 75 in Atlanta, Georgia. And in my time in ISKCON, I've been temple president, I've been temple treasurer, I've been pujari, book distribution, all of the various different kinds of services. I also was a production manager for the BBT when we produced the 10th, 11th, and 12th cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I've written several books, and from 2005 to approximately 2015 or 16, I traveled throughout Europe, in India and Russia, mainly in Eastern Europe. And so for the last 10 years, I've been not traveling so much, but I have focused more on writing. And I have also accepted some disciples. And so we'll talk about that later, about how that was done. So that's a little bit about me. And so next thing is, of course, what's the issue? and that is the GBC approval for female Diksha Guru within ISKCON. Okay. This subject matter is being discussed for more than 20 years. And Pranada, Mataji Pranada, she gave the entire history in a video that was perhaps last week. And she went over the whole thing, A to Z. So if you want to see that history, look at her video. But my contention is that this subject is being discussed for so long without coming to any conclusion is because we can't see the forest for the trees, or perhaps the other way, we can't see the trees for the forest. And so I want to separate the different parts of this and discuss them separately. And then we're going to also talk about context. And the context is extremely important in understanding this entire affair. So basically the parts are diksha, initiation, okay, whether male or female, ISKCON, what is ISKCON, and the GBC. And without having a proper understanding of each of these, it's no wonder that we have a lot of confusion and problems. No. And then there's more to it, form and substance beyond this. So we're going to take each part separately, and I'm going to begin with ISKCON. And different devotees will have a different impression of what ISKCON is, depending upon when they came to ISKCON and how they joined Prabhupada's mission. So let's go back to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, one lone individual in New York City in 1965. Was there an ISKCON then? Well, one person. One person is not an organization. But there was Srila Prabhupada, and he had a very well-developed understanding or idea of what he wanted to present. And so gradually he got a few followers, and then in July of 1966, he incorporated. And so then there was Prabhupada and a handful of followers at that time. Okay, let's say before the incorporation. Was that ISKCON? What can we say? Well, there was no ISKCON by that name at that time. So Srila Prabhupada applied for the 501c3, got the approval, and Achyutananda Prabhu, who was with Prabhupada at the time, has written in his book that beaming like a father over his newborn son, Swamiji said, "This International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, is a great tool that we can use to spread our Hare Krishna chanting. If it is not helpful, however, we can dissolve it, so we must be very careful." Okay. So we've got the corporation. Now is it ISKCON? What's the difference between the day before they got the paper and the day after they got the paper? Is there any substantial difference? Not really, right? You got a paper from the government saying, okay, you have a legal organization. But the substance of ISKCON did not change. What's the substance of ISKCON? And that is Srila Prabhupada and his teachings. Okay. And then the members also make up the group of the organization, which could have been called ISKCON previously, before. And there's no difference between that and after that piece of paper came. Now, what is ISKCON? ISKCON can be defined in different ways, and it's important that we do this because the devotees use this word ISKCON in many different ways. They'll refer to sometimes to the corporation, sometimes they'll refer to the temple president as ISKCON, or their temple as ISKCON, or their GBC as ISKCON, or the organization is ISKCON. So what is ISKCON? You know, they say, I left ISKCON, I joined ISKCON. What is ISKCON? This is an important point to understand. And I'm going to give my opinion that the essence of ISKCON is Srila Prabhupada. We've all come to this organization because of Srila Prabhupada's writings. It's his putting his consciousness into words, or his recorded words, or on the pages of a book. His consciousness is what has attracted to us all, and it is his consciousness, his understanding as the Acharya that has been attractive to us to what we joined. That's what we joined. When we say we joined ISKCON, we joined Srila Prabhupada. But not everybody. Some, everybody comes to ISKCON in different ways. The early devotees, before there were any temples, okay, say maybe there was 2 temples, New York and San Francisco. They didn't come because of this big, gorgeous temple and deities and everything that's included in the modern ISKCON temples. What do they come for? They came for the camaraderie, for the kirtan, for the prasadam, many different reasons. But it wasn't because of the organization. It was all the other things. And those early devotees, because there was no form of ISKCON. There was only the substance in those days. Srila Prabhupada, he was present, teaching, all of them. So they became attracted to the substance. And this is true even for devotees who joined as late as myself. When I joined, there was simply a rented house. And, we had 2 or 3 of those before we actually purchased the first temple here. And but I had been reading Srila Prabhupada's books prior to even meeting the devotees. And so that's what I was attracted to. I was attracted to the substance. But we see that later, after the temples get built up, after ISKCON is, say, 10, 15, 20 years in existence, then there's a lot more to be attracted to. There's a form. And so many people, they can become attracted by the form. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. They're coming to begin their spiritual life in Krishna consciousness. The point I'm trying to make is there's a difference between the form and the substance. And it's important to understand what the actual substance is. Now later, as we continue in time, Srila Prabhupada, not too much later, actually just a few years, in 1970, Srila Prabhupada created a document called the Direction of Management. It was his, basically, organizational ideas for for his society. ISKCON at that time had something like 17 or 20 temples around the world. And so with this document, Srila Prabhupada created his GBC, his Governing Body Commission. And I'll read just a little bit for this to get some understanding, because this further defines what ISKCON is according to Srila Prabhupada's desire and what he was trying to accomplish. Okay? So he wrote in there, as we have increased our volume of our activities, now I think a governing body commission, hereafter referred to as a GBC, should be established. I am getting old, 75 years old. Therefore, at any time, I may be out of the scene. Therefore, I think it necessary to give instruction to my disciples how they shall manage the whole institution. These personalities are now considered my direct representatives. While I am living, they will act as my zonal secretaries, and after my demise, they will be known as executors. The primary objective of the GBC is to organize the opening of new temples and to maintain the established temples. The GBC has no jurisdiction in the publication of manuscripts. And in that document, he said he wanted that the GBC, that they create a constitution. So that was in 1970. And finally, just this year, in 2026, what's that? That's 56 years later, finally, they were able to manage getting the Constitution done. Good for them. Okay, now, Prabhupada created the GBC, and what did he want? He wanted them to help him. They were his senior followers. They understood more than all the other devotees. And so he wanted them basically to do what he was doing, to travel around, to see that things are going on nicely, to adjudicate any problems, to encourage the devotees, see that everybody's chanting their rounds, and so on. So this is what Prabhupada wanted them to do. However, unfortunately, the GBC members, very quickly after that, they began to have their own ideas about what their portfolio was. And they began taking it onto themselves to do things that Srila Prabhupada did not ask them to do, and in fact, did not want them to do. And this we learned from a number of his letters. Now, if devotees don't read these letters, if they don't understand this history of Prabhupada's movement, if they haven't read this, then they will think, well, the GBC, they're the representatives of Prabhupada, just like the GBC present themselves at present. But by reading these, we get a different impression. So I'm going to read some of these letters, but there's more. Now, these all of this is contained in my book. Can you see? Divine or Demonic. This is a 500-page book that I published in 2019, where I explain a lot of this history and some of the things that were not followed correctly. But I'm going to read some of these letters here now. So this is a letter to Madhavisa, June 1972. In fact, let's start with 71, because 71, you'll see that this is coming out just 1 year later. GBC members are simply to see that things are going on. Other centers have got their president, secretary, etc., and they are managing separately. That is the formula. So how is it that the GBC are now the final authority? They are simply to examine that things are going on nicely. That is all. This is a letter to Mampati Swami, 1971, July. So now let's be a little fair with them. All of us are indoctrinated into formal institutions from the time we go to grade school, right? When you think of an institution, an organization, you always think president, secretary, you've got this whole hierarchy of authorities and so on. But this was not Srila Prabhupada's idea. He did not want them. He did not, in fact, even take a management role over the temples. He was simply traveling around, seeing that everybody was following the principles, encouraging them to read, to chant their rounds, and so on. And that's what he wanted his assistant members, his secretaries, his GBC men to do. But they were not. So it went to their head. They said, okay, we're now the controllers. So Prabhupada Chastam, first letter, 1971, here now June, 1972, to Madhavisa. Madhavisa was in Australia at that time. I want the GBC men should leave management of the individual centers to the local presidents and concentrate themselves upon the preaching work. They should be constantly traveling from one center to another center to see how the students are learning and to give whatever advice is necessary for improving the temple standards. Very clear, right? And And of course, in the direction of management, Prabhupada set it up so that each month a GBC man would travel with him, where he would give personal instruction to that person, and then they would switch every month to another man. So that was constantly going on. So the GBC man had a lot of close personal association with Srila Prabhupada. But still, somehow or other, they weren't getting this properly. So another letter to Sasarup, June 1972. You will not be too much involved in local temple management, but for management that requires larger interest, that will be your responsibility as a GBC. Your first job should be to make sure that every one of the devotees in your zone of management is reading regularly our literature and discussing this subject matter seriously from all angles of seeing, and that they are somehow or other absorbing the knowledge of Krishna conscious philosophy. Okay. That's letter to Satsvarup, 1972. And then there's another one, very, very famous letter to Karandar. That was in 1974. Regarding your points about taxation, corporate status, etc., I have heard from Jayatirtha that you wanted to make a big plan for centralization of management, taxes, monies, corporate status, bookkeeping, credit, like that. I do not at all approve of such a plan. Do not centralize anything. Each temple must remain independent and self-sufficient. That was my plan from the very beginning. Why are you thinking otherwise? Once before you wanted to do something centralizing with your GBC meeting, and if I did not interfere, the whole thing would have been killed. Do not think of this way of big corporation, big credit, centralization. These are all nonsense proposals. The only thing I wanted was that the book printing and distribution should be centralized. Therefore, I appointed you and Balimardan to do it. Otherwise, management, everything should be done locally by local men. Accounts must be kept, things must be in order and lawfully done, but that should be each temple's concern, not yours. Very strongly worded letter, very, very important letter, and because it spells out very clearly the limits that Prabhupada is placing on his GBC men. He wanted them to stay in their lane. Do what I'm instructing you to do. But they did not. One more, just one last letter. Let's see. Jayatirtha. Oh, yeah. No, this is a discussion between Jayatirtha and Srila Prabhupada. So Jayatirtha they were talking about organization. Jayatirtha. So the next thing, besides having zonal responsibility, a GBC man may have a functional responsibility. Prabhupada, main functional responsibility is to go and see that the temple regular work is going on, that the temple president is doing nicely, to check in this way. You can sit down in the class and see how things are going on. That's it. And Prabhupada, in that conversation, he said, Krishna consciousness movement is for training men to be independently thoughtful and competent in all types and departments of knowledge and action, not for making bureaucracy. Once there is bureaucracy, the whole thing will be spoiled. So you can read through the Veda base, the letters of Srila Prabhupada, and you can see that the letters continued like this, even for the next several years until his leaving. And then what did the GBC do immediately upon Prabhupada's departure? They centralized everything. They did not follow the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. They created a bureaucracy, not all at once, but over the years. And so at this point in time, or at least when I wrote my book, there was something like 20 layers of bureaucracy. 20 different devotees had positions in the bureaucracy of doing things, and everything has become centralized with the GBC at the top, following a corporate model where they have hierarchical control. So this means whatever's decided at the top, everybody has to follow within the entire organization. So again, this was not Prabhupada's intention. He did not want that. So how does this impact the female Diksha Guru? Again, we have to look at form and substance. Form and substance of ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada is the substance. The ISKCON Corporation is the form, and the GBC is also the form. They are part of the organizational apparatus to do things according to Srila Prabhupada's wishes. That's form. The substance is, again, Srila Prabhupada. Why are we having confusion today about so many things? Because there's this confusion about form and substance. The GBC have presented themselves as what was written in Prabhupada's last will. It was written in there that the GBC are the ultimate managing authority. However, the GBC have taken it upon themselves to be the ultimate authority and the ultimate managers. And that means the controllers. The GBC is simply to be Srila Prabhupada's assistants to do what he wanted them to do. And then a very important point in the direction of management, he said, after my demise, they will be known as executors, not GBC, executors. And an executor is one who carries out the will of another person. But the GBC have unfortunately gone way beyond that. They have used ISKCON as if it were something that they created, that they could control and do with whatever they want. And for this reason, this is why many devotees, myself, many God brothers, God sisters, have left that organization, because we see that they are basically have usurped what Srila Prabhupada created and are doing something different with it, not what he wanted. And this, of course, includes initiations. So we come to this, the third topic now of diksha, or initiation. The question is, can the ladies initiate? Can women initiate? And that discussion has been going on for more than 20 years. The GBC decided just the other day that they're going to kick the can down the road some more, that they're not going to come to a conclusion. They're going to study it some more. And personally, I think they're going to study it with the idea that we'll study it until all of the senior Matajis leave their bodies. Then we won't have the problem anymore. Might be a little bit cynical, but yes, I'm quite cynical about the GBC. Let's get back to form and substance. ISKCON, the substance is Srila Prabhupada. Okay, the form is the organization. The form is the GBC. The GBC are part of the form. They're not part of the substance. The substance is Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And Diksha also has a form and a substance. Let's talk about this for a little bit. Now, if we go to Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 15, text 108. This is a very important verse and purport that everybody should study. In the previous shloka, Lord Chaitanya is saying, simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna once, a person is relieved from all reactions of sinful life. One can complete the 9 processes of devotional service simply by chanting the holy name. And in text 108, one does not have to undergo initiation or execution, the activities required before initiation. One simply has to vibrate the holy name with his lips. Thus, even a man in the lowest class, Chandala, can be delivered. Now, this purport is extremely important. And Prabhupada begins this with a quote from Jiva Goswami from his Bhakti Sandarbha about Diksha. Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyat Kuryat Pashyad Sankshayam Tasmat Diksheti Sa Prokta Desikais Tatta Kovidai. Diksha is the process by which one can awaken his transcendental knowledge and vanquish all reactions caused by sinful activity. A person expert in the study of the revealed scriptures knows this process as Diksha. So here Diksha is being explained, and I've made a very thorough search of the database looking for the definition of Diksha that Prabhupada gives. I found 3 instances, and he always describes it, explains it in this way as the process of transference of transcendental knowledge. That is what Diksha is. Now, the remainder of this purport is also about initiation. Even though in the verse, Srila Prabhupada, in the verse, Lord Chaitanya is saying that initiation is not required. One only needs to vibrate the holy name of Krishna. But in the purport, Prabhupada writes repeatedly, and this is a very long purport, Prabhupada writes that one is required to take initiation. So this seems contradictory. If Lord Chaitanya is saying one need not have initiation to be delivered, but then Prabhupada is writing about all these slokas, and he's quoting many, many different slokas about how one is required to be initiated. Hari Bhakti Vilas, for example, the following injunction is from the Vishnu Yamala. Unless one is initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, all of his devotional activities are useless. A person who is not properly initiated can descend again into the animal species. And then Hari Bhakti Vilas further quotes, it is a duty of every human being to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master, giving everything to him, body, mind, and intelligence. One must take initiation from him. And it goes on and on. So there's one can become confused by reading this also. So what are we to make of this? Lord Chaitanya, of course, cannot be contradicted. He doesn't make mistakes. And he says, to achieve liberation, one can simply chant the holy name of Krishna. Now, however, for the Vaishnavas, we aspire to achieve Goloka Vrindavan, to a personal relationship with Krishna. And what do we do for that? So part of this purport, there's slokas that are explaining that if one is going to worship the deity, one must receive initiation, and particularly Diksha in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. Diksha means Gayatri mantra. Diksha means receiving the Gayatri mantra from the spiritual master. So, yes, initiation is then required. Now, with all of that foregoing, let us look at the question again of GBC approval for female Diksha Guru with the ISKCON. Oh, one last thing that I need to mention, I must mention, is that in Gaudiya Siddhanta, there is nothing ever mentioned for place for any third party in the initiation process. It is a relationship between the guru and disciple without any third party having anything to do with it. However, the GBC have over the years arranged everything so that they are the intercessors between the relationship of the guru and disciple. The GBC require the gurus to take the ISKCON Guru course, and to make a oath, to pledge an oath of allegiance to the GBC, not to Srila Prabhupada, to the GBC. The disciples are required to take the ISKCON disciple course and also pledge an oath never to leave ISKCON. And ISKCON means to them, it's drilled into their heads, the GBC are ISKCON. ISKCON means the GBC, it's synonymous. Not only that, but the GBC are equivalent to Srila Prabhupada. So the young devotees, they have no basis for questioning any of that. They just accept, well, Srila Prabhupada, they are Srila Prabhupada's successors. This is what they tell us to do, so this is what we should do. And they never question it. Because it's also confirmed, or let's say, also drilled into them that if you ask such questions, it's an aparad. You can't ask questions like that. But no, this is against Gaudiya Siddhanta. And so when devotees, and they mature after some time in Krishna consciousness, and they realize these things, they feel that, oh, I've been hoodwinked, right? So it becomes quite complicated. Okay, so GBC, none of what they are doing in terms of initiation is bona fide. And it doesn't matter whether it's a male guru or a female guru. Their entire system is not bona fide. They are interfering where they should not interfere. So that's the first disqualification for the GBC approval for female Diksha Guru and ISKCON. And if everybody simply accepted that, there would be no question of GBC approval. Boss, problem solved. Okay. Then the next question again, what is ISKCON? Okay. Prabhupada is ISKCON. And there are so many statements of Prabhupada saying, I want all of my sons and daughters to become guru. If you watch the video of Narayani, she was interviewed by on Namarasa podcast a few days back. She gives all of the quotes of Prabhupada saying, I want both my boys and girls to become guru. So there's so many affirmations that Srila Prabhupada wanted that. And since he is ISKCON, then what's the question? So again, judging from form and substance, if we go back and forth between these two, we can understand that confusion lies because of the confusion between the form and the substance. The substance of Srila Prabhupada, the substance of Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, the substance does not restrict like that. So my point, and let me just bring it to a close with this. My point is that the GBC have no business in interfering in this. It's between the prospective disciple and the guru, and considering that diksha is a process of transference of spiritual knowledge, transcendental knowledge. These Vaishnavis that would initiate, they are already doing that. They are already giving diksha by that definition. I'm quite sure I'm an outlier. I don't think anybody else is speaking like this or giving such definitions. And I'm sure I'll be roundly criticized for this, but that's my understanding. Let me take your questions. Especially if you think I'm in error someplace, please speak up.
I've
Go
got a
ahead.
question.
Yes.
Actually, you told before about maybe I can mix the definition, but as far as I remember, you told that about grandchild disciple, like this. Yes. Well, it was about that room conversation when Srila Prabhupada.
Grand disciple.
Yeah, grand disciple. Yes. So, and the question is the following: am I a grand disciple of Srila Prabhupada then?
Yes.
Okay, I see now. Thank
Yes,
you.
you're in the parampara
Yeah.
through me. Yes.
Yeah. And another question is, if, for example, and we know that in the history we know such things like disciples sometimes they kill their gurus, and if yeah.
I do.
Okay, let me be precise.
Better.
Actually, I'm speaking about Srila Prabhupada and those disciples who killed him.
Oh,
And the question is, if those disciples who participated in that killing Srila Prabhupada, so they have their own disciples, but does it mean that those grand disciples and their disciples themselves are not in the parampara now because they don't have their guru?
this is a very, oh boy, this is a very difficult question. First of all, I'll say that my position is that nobody killed Srila Prabhupada. Life and death is up to Krishna. When Srila and Prabhupada, and you've heard this lecture before. We're waiting at Gita Nagari for Srila Prabhupada to come there, and we would get news periodically of his condition from devotees returning from Vrindavan. And I have one lecture that the devotees came upon their arrival in New York, that Srila Prabhupada decides to leave. That Srila Prabhupada said, okay, what's the use? This body is finished, I'll just leave. And devotees became all in anxiety, and they were just begging Prabhupada, no, don't leave. You're putting us in great anxiety. So then after some time, Prabhupada, he says, okay, all right, if you want me to stay, I'll stay. Like this, very nonchalantly, right? Like life and death is none. In other words, and he also said, yes, Krishna is leaving it up to me, whether I want to go or not. So, you read those room conversations from that time. It's very, very important to understand that history, and especially since you speak English, you can do that. It's be very good. My opinion is that when Srila Prabhupada, at one point, Srila Prabhupada said, he was a one-room conversation. Prabhupada was distressed, and they're asking, why is Prabhupada distressed? And the answer was, Prabhupada believes somebody is giving him poison. And that's another, I won't go into that conversation, but if Prabhupada has actually believed that his health problems were because he was being poisoned, why would he stay? He had done what he could. He had obviously then at that point lost control of his men. They were not, what to speak of, following him. They were poisoning him. So Prabhupada then decided to go. Not that they killed him. He could have stayed. We read about Prahlad. Prahlad was given so much poison. And Prabhupada, we don't know how much poison he was given. Maybe he was given enough to make an ordinary man leave 10 times. We don't know. So anyway, so that's the first thing. Prabhupada was not killed. He left by his own will. Now, the question about the position of those disciples, of those perpetrators, I'm not in a position to say anything about that. What can I say? That's up to Krishna.
And Yama, and Yamaraj.
However it's handled. No more questions. Come on, come on, come on. You have to ask questions for everybody else. Srila Prabhu, what do you think? Chris, you have a very sharp intellect. Did I put you asleep?
Chris or Craig? No, it was an excellent lecture. I think that the key idea of the independence from the governing body and the individual relationship between the guru and the individual relationship with Sri Radha Krishna is vitally important. And any organization which would ignore that, downplay that, keep people away from that is it's very dangerous in my opinion. So that
Yes.
I could say many things about that, but that personal relationship, which is the true Gnostic experience between the Guru and Sri Krishna Radha, is the essence. And if that's taken away, it's just like a big dress-up game with a lark.
Yes. In my Divine or Demonic book, my thesis there is that ISKCON has been infiltrated by the powers that be, the demonic powers that rule this world, to destroy it from within. And one thing that they've done is disobey all of Srila Prabhupada's instructions about creating an institution or blah, 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 initiations, wherever they can stall or stymie the progress, changing the books, all of this, it simply indicates. Prabhupada said, you can't tell who's a devotee, who's a demon by looking at them. You can only tell by the result of their activities. And what's the result of their activities? To disobey Srila Prabhupada at every step. So they can't be honest and loyal followers. Therefore, why recognize them as having any role, any position at all to say anything about who's going to take initiation from who? As ideally, hopefully, somehow or other, this is the problem. The institution is the problem. The female Diksha Guru question is a symptom of the problem.
Yes.
Okay. The problem is the GBC and how they've arranged ISKCON as a corporate structure to put themselves as the final arbiter of every decision that everybody has to go along with, right? Creating dogma as if it's a Christian church, right? But they are trying to create another Christian church.
It's literally the exact blueprint of a Christian church.
Yeah.
Point by point.
For what? For control, for becoming the gatekeepers to Vaikuntha. Who can go back to God and who cannot? Who can get initiated, who can't? Under what circumstances a person can get initiated or not? They have no business with any of that. But young, innocent people read Srila Prabhupada's books, they come to the organization and they think, oh, yes, this is wonderful. This is the manifestation of what we read in Prabhupada's books. Until you read the books far enough. Bhakti Vikas Swami tells a story, an anecdote. One time in India, some Indian couple came to him and they say, well, we've been reading Prabhupada's books and chanting japa for 2 years now, but we're a little confused, so we need your help. So please tell us, should we do what we read in the books or should we do what they tell us in the temple? What does that say? That tells you everything, right?
All of it.
Unfortunately, yes. Now, to put just a happy note on this, there's one Croatian Mataji who's psychic, and maybe Tatiana, you know who she is, I don't know. But I heard this story from Vishab Prabhu. She was one time at Radha Damodar Temple in Vrindavan in Prabhupada's rooms, and Prabhupada was coming through very strongly. And so she asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what about your ISKCON? Everybody's very concerned. It seems like they're not following you. They're changing your books. What do we do? And the answer came back from Prabhupada, that's okay, don't worry. It'll all be taken care of within several years. I'm just giving a chance for the demons to do some devotional service.
Mm.
Okay. Jai Srila Prabhupada, so merciful. Petit Pavan. But so hopefully that's not too far away from now. Somebody had their hand up. Tatiana, you had your hand up.
Thank you for this lecture. Now, well, it is clear this, what they call ISKCON, is not Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. And he said himself, when two people are chanting Hare Krishna, and this is ISKCON. And,
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
And,
not even two people. He said anyone who's chanting Hare Krishna is an
yes.
ISKCON.
Yes, absolutely. And I just found some video when they say that boys and girls can be gurus. And here is from 9 Canto, chapter 14. Say, women have been compared to Shudras and Vaishyas on the spiritual platform. However, when one is elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness, whatever one is, a man, woman, Shudra, or whatever, everyone is equal.
Because they're a Vaishnava, yes. Vaishnava is above all these material designations.
Yes.
Thank you. Chris, Billy?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. I couldn't. I was trying to speak before. Just well, two things. That verse in Chaitanya Madhya something 108, because I might look that up. Which chapter? So which book of the Madhya?
Chapter 15.
Chapter 15, 108. Okay, I'll have a look at that.
Study that chapter. Study that verse, rather.
Yeah. Like that anecdote you just said, I think a moment or two ago about that Prabhupada saying to that lady, well, I'm letting the demons give the demons some chance to do the devotional service. And it's not just that, because you can learn from mistakes of people as well, because at the moment there's so much arguing and all that, and we see the effect of that. And it's what I believe, when people argue, they're just see a very small part of the problem and make a big mountain out of a molehill out of that, and that's becomes a truth. It's like that's what I think the Bhaktivinoda said about people looking at the Vedas or Gita, looking at it as part of an elephant. They just, that analogy with that, oh, this is a trunk and then see the hindquarters or whatever. And because you only just look at a bit of it, you never get to see the whole thing, have a broader minded view. So to me, it seems to tie in with that. So that's just one immediate thought I was saying, and from what I was thinking, and it seems to me from what I'm getting, your whole thing about this question is the most important thing is, well, what is diksha in the first place, about what does it mean? That's not really addressed or discussed or really gone into, but it's just an effect of that, or women, female diksha gurus and all this sort of stuff. So it's taking quotes from Prabhupada, but it's the main thing is trying to get to the essence of it. What's the thing first of all? That's the thing you need to talk about. So that's I came very late because I was teaching. I was teaching online something else to teach chess. But so sorry for coming late, but that's just what I'm thinking of. stop speaking now.
Thank you for your comment. And you're right. The solution to this problem is very simple. Simply ignore the GBC and follow Srila Prabhupada. He's the essence. He's the substance of ISKCON. He's the founder. He's our acharya. Follow him and disregard the GBC entirely. There are devotees who are doing this. I know 2 female diksha gurus. They're not within ISKCON, but they have their organization, they have their followers, and they are all their devotees. They're progressing nicely in devotional service. And there are 3 or 4 other groups who have, again, disregarded the GBC. They're just following Srila Prabhupada independently, and they're doing quite nicely. So that's the solution to these problems. And it's not, again, the GBC is the problem. Female Diksha Guru is a symptom. Why aren't the Gurukulas, why isn't this child molestation problem fixed? The same reason. It's the same problem. The GBC are in control. If they put the schools under the control of the parents, that problem will be solved overnight. Doesn't take 20 years. It'll be fixed overnight. It's not being solved because they don't want it to be solved, because molesting a child by spiritual authorities destroys their spiritual inclinations for the entire life. So it's great tragedy. So that's the problem. And if we want a solution, we all pray to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna to rectify his organization so that it functions the way he wanted it to function. A loose federation of independent temples, a informal organization of devotees associated together, people who want to hear about and worship Krishna associating together. That's it. That solves the problem. We don't need a huge hierarchy or bureaucracy for a spiritual organization. It's completely unnecessary. And that in itself tells you that something is very wrong. Anything else? Well, thank you all again for being here and participating, giving me your association. And let's all continue to serve Srila Prabhupada, serve his mission. We all must be guru. He wanted all of us to become guru, not some institutional guru. Every one of us. Be guru? Well, by teaching everybody else about Krishna. Whoever you meet, Lord Chaitanya said, tell them about Krishna. And we'll create a spiritual revolution. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.